At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Yeah, I always judge my guests on how they react to that. You know, you're gonna have a rational thought today. Well, we're gonna have rational thoughts. I guarantee it because I've met this woman several times and there's some great things happening. And it relates to your business because as the market changes, as we evolve, we're all like, what are we gonna do now that AI is taking over the world? How can we stay ahead of the game? And our guest today is gonna reveal to you some untapped revenue that you don't even know exists that can totally make or break your 2026. This is not a big secret, but it will be when you reveal it. But there's money already on the table in your pocket, in your business that you don't see. And she's going to help you unpack that right now. So our guest today, man, she's an award-winning customer success strategist, keynote speaker, podcast host, founder and CEO of the Customer Success Pro. She's got 14 years experience. She's a rock star, man. I could go on and read this whole bio, but it'd take up half the show. So without further ado about how to unlock some extra money in your business, welcome to the show today, Anika Zubair. Anika, how are you?
I'm good, Doug. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation today.
You bet. Me too. I'm very excited about it. Before we reveal the top secret of some income and revenue, I want to talk about you and how you got into this crazy business. So give me a little bit about your background and how you got started.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I always love hearing what people have to say, but my name is Anika and I've spent the last 15 years in B2B technology or software as a service. And I started my career in tech, in sales. I had sales experience before tech, but it started in sales and then I moved into account management. And then there was a shift that happened in technology and we started to call it what is now known as customer success. And I worked my way up into executive leadership, spent 10 years in executive leadership roles, and then just this last year went out on my own and started building my own business under the Customer Success Pro that you just mentioned. And I love what I do, which is really helping companies do exactly what you've kind of said is unlock more revenue from their existing customer base. That's everything that we do at the Customer Success Pro.
You know, it's not, and we're going to unpack this a little bit deeper here. And I'll get to that in a second, folks. We'll get to it. But what caused you to go from working these other companies to work on your own? It's a big shift.
It is. Yeah. I don't know if it was super intentional, if I'm honest. I
got fired.
I think that there was not like this bow, bam moment where I'm like, yes, I'm going to build a business. I don't think it's ever that clear to anyone who's ever started or launched their own company. But what started as during the pandemic, a lot of my network reaching out to me saying I need some additional help or some resource with this consulting thing or this project. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And it kind of just trickled and kept going. And then as I started to rebrand and really just decide and be intentional about where my business was going about 2 years ago in 2024, I was like, okay, I'm going to be intentional. Let's build it. Let's see what happens. And I always thought it was going to be a side hustle. I never thought I would bet on it on my own. Honestly, I never thought the day would come. But I think the stars aligned. Things were really growing. There was so much momentum happening that I was having to take annual PTO to do the side hustle. And I was like, well, if I'm getting that much business from what's working well on nights and weekends, maybe I take the plunge and try it. And I was super nervous, by the way. I took the plunge and then still interviewed for jobs. I was like, I don't know, maybe this will work out. But here I am a year later and I'm still loving it. So I don't think it was ever intentional. I don't think there was a moment where I'm like, yes, I'm doing it. I think it was always in service of helping. And then that kind of grew.
You know, there's not a single side hustle I can imagine that can't be full time. We just don't think about it at the time, like you said. I remember when the internet first came to be, I watched a person talk about this one product that they were selling. And I was like, okay, you know, they say there's riches and niches. When I asked you before about what industry you like, I'm like, oh. They made $80,000 a year selling tumbleweeds online.
Like the real ones that tumble.
The real tumbleweeds, yeah. 80 grand. This was back in 2000, right? Internet just getting going. 80 grand a year selling tumbleweeds.
Okay.
Now I checked them out just last year. They're doing $250,000 a year.
I'm in the wrong business, Doug. I've already decided we're switching here. What's happening?
I share that story for people who are looking at what you just mentioned about, hey, I'm doing this thing, but side hustle, I'm like, any side hustle can be full time.
True. I agree. There is a very strong need for a niche of something to be served.
Yeah,
If there's a
yeah,
problem out there, there's probably
right.
someone that needs help solving that problem. And clearly, tumbleweeds are a big problem that needs to be solved.
You want to know who's buying these things, right?
I
Well, I
know.
did
I'm like,
find out
whoa, man, that's crazy. What a great business
interior
model.
decorators, because it doesn't come with fungus on it and stuff. It's dry, so you can put a light fixture.
Yeah,
You can do a lot of things with it. So it's
interesting.
kind of cool. Yeah,
How
look it up.
interesting.
Anyway, enough about tumbleweeds. I want to talk about making more money, whatever you're doing, Mr. Per whoever's watching this. And obviously, the old adage, it's easier to sell to an existing customer than a new one, than acquiring a new one. We all know this, or at least we've heard it.
Mm,
Yet, 99% of all marketing is about getting that next customer. It's not about take care of the existing ones.
it's right.
And what I want to ask you about in depth is the other areas, because most people, okay, salesperson, upsell, that's the easy one.
Mm.
But what you do is much different, much more holistic, and much more deep in other areas of a company. Give us the overview and then a story about a company you've worked with. So tell us what you're doing to help bring in the incremental revenue, and then an example.
Yeah, sure. I think it's really powerful that we do have great salespeople that go out and sell and bring in new logos. And like you said, we spend a ton of marketing dollar acquiring a whole bunch of
Hmm.
companies, but we almost forget about it all the time. And that's where, again, your ideal buyer is not necessarily your ideal customer, because the way your customer comes into your ecosystem and starts using your product and service, like you said, a salesperson can maybe upsell a new feature, a new functionality, like,
Hmm.
hey, this works this way. But when you actually work with a post sales team, which is in my world, a customer
Hmm.
success team, whether that's
Hmm.
onboarding, implementation, support, success, professional services, all of that, when you start working with these people, you get an in-depth understanding of how their business works and how your product is embedded in that business. And I think the
Hmm.
beauty of working that closely with a customer is you're building this really, really strong, not only relationship, but I would say a strategic partnership that ends up happening. And you start to learn, okay, well, this customer does XYZ 3 times a year, and I know it from their product launches, I know it from their marketing campaigns, I know all this intel and this way they work. I also know that they're really trying to expand to 3 new markets this year. And I
Hmm.
know that our feature functionality is going to help them get there. And then you basically storytell, or you, what I like to say, instead of upselling, uptelling a customer what makes sense next for them as well. So it's
Uh,
almost like consultative selling, which I know a lot of salespeople understand, but it is really understanding what your ideal customer is using your product for and what they're trying to grow while using your product. And then how you
hmm.
make that narrative around growth for them is a big part of what I do.
Yeah, yeah. You have me at narrative and stories. That's
Yeah.
really what we do, of course. A couple questions for you. And this maybe apply more toward the SMB market than the middle markets, which you focus on enterprise stuff. But it might hold true for both cases. I'll use example. I used to work at the Nextel, a
Hmm.
communications company, which enterprise company for communication. And yeah, I was working with 3M one day and doing my discovery and realized what they needed wasn't what I had. So
Mm.
I pointed them to AT&T, which was great because the guy like instantly trusted me because I wasn't trying to sell him. I'm trying to
Yeah.
help him out, even if it meant same the competition, right? This is before I watched um, Miracle on 34th Street, by the way, but same concept. I'm going to send you somewhere else because it's a better deal. But if I'm an enterprise sales guy or middle market sales guy and I know what they need, but I don't have it, what do I do? Do I go ahead and send them to Macy's, or do I tell my boss we should get a new product line or work on an affiliate program? I mean, when you're locked in with a big company, you might not have the ability to adapt as easily.
Yeah, and I think this comes back to like really understanding what business problem they're trying to solve for, because I think that's where we get so sucked into feature functionality, which in some products, yes, it's as much as ticking a box, like you do X, great, I'm going to buy this product. But most customers, at least in the B2B software world that I play in, and then the work we do, we don't buy for a feature, funny enough. Like you don't go buy a CRM tool for the fields or the dashboard. Actually, you buy a CRM because you need to organize your customer data and you need to make some
Hmm.
sales, right? You want to make some
Hmm.
money. That's probably why you're buying a CRM. And you have this preconditioned notion in your brain that my CRM needs to have this dashboard, this feature, this functionality, which
Right.
maybe in a perfect world it does, But if you are truly being a consultative seller and also someone who's delivering value to the existing customer, you need to know what their business problem is. Are you trying to sell more? Are you trying to like visualize your data? What are you trying to do? Because I'm pretty sure your product has some functionality that's going to serve that problem. But I always tell the teams that I work with and everyone that I'm training, it's like, what is their actual problem, and then what outcome are they trying to achieve, and then you need to be that middle glue. You need to figure out what's the problem, what are they trying to achieve, how do we do with our product. Yes, there might be instances where it might not exactly fit, but I'm guessing if you're competitive in the market, there is something middle ground that's going to solve that outcome that they're looking to solve for.
Okay, that's fine for the initial sale, but what about if it's after the fact?
Even then, do you know how many customers come and say like, oh, well, I thought you had this part of your product suite and now I'm not seeing it. It's very common. Like, I mean, I don't want to give salespeople a bad rep, but sometimes they oversell. They sell a Ferrari when it's a Ford, right?
Okay.
And I think that that's been a tale as old as time. But I think a lot of customer success professionals have to deal with that. And again, I challenge everyone. Your customer is a partner. They're a business strategic partner with you. They decided to buy and use you for a strategic reason. What is it? It's not a feature functionality. No matter what they were sold, no matter what they were told, they had a big problem they were trying to solve. What is that problem? And then your critical thinking skills has to figure out how your product solves that problem. And it happens so often, like 3 months, 6 months after purchase, when a customer realizes, well, wait, I thought we were doing this and now it doesn't have this, or how do we achieve this? And so it's very common in the customer life cycle, not just in the sales cycle.
Okay. And one of the things we discussed briefly before the show was it might be obvious to a good enterprise salesperson, but what if they're not in sales? What if they're in customer service or ops or marketing or IT or something? How can they help with this process as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think what the problem is that we get so just into our own product and service, and we forget that our customers, they have their own companies, they have their own businesses to run, they have their own revenue models to figure out, right? And we get so like, oh my gosh, we're going to release this beautiful new product line and all our customers are going to love it. No, they're running their businesses. They're busy people, they're busy professionals. And I think the one thing I always say to the wider organization, not just one department, is like, what outcomes are you trying to achieve with your customers? Like, what are they actually trying to achieve? And how do you fit into their ecosystem? Because you're just one part. Like, they are running a business and you are just one product or vendor or service in that ecosystem. So instead of thinking like, my product is the best thing since sliced bread, which I know a lot of people think, it's like, how do I actually fit into their ecosystem and help their company grow? Because in the world of AI, like you said, in the world that's changing every single day, there's another option. And they're going to be looking and they're going to be thinking about better, more efficient ways to use, because they're not thinking about the cost or your product or your features. They're literally thinking about their business and their P&L within their business. And if you're not part of the profit line, you're definitely not going to be in their renewal cycle.
Yeah. Give me an example of the most surprising or unexpected result of working with the customer where you've able to uncover some incremental revenue for them.
Yeah, I had a great workshop with a client and we were basically doing stakeholder mapping and we were just analyzing what are the right key people that we need to talk to, especially around, and the main problem they were trying to solve for was account growth and just upsells in general, because they passed their accounts back to sales. And once we did account mapping in this session, but also once we sat down and just realized that customers buy your product for one of these 3 reasons that we've already talked about on the show, they were able to actually position their product as something that was going to change their customers' business. And they actually got executive stakeholders on the very next call, which then they had their salesperson join, and they were actually positioning an upsell as, so it made so much ROI sense for them that they would be losing money by not actually increasing their product usage and spend with us.
For those of us who don't speak corporate, you might not be able to mention it. You might not be able to mention a name, but if you can mention like, hey, what was it? What was the service? What was give me some
okay, of
context
course.
on the
Yeah,
story.
sure. It was a company called Flywire, and they're basically for universities, and they track like admissions and revenue and all that kind of like just student admissions, and they wanted to embed their way into multiple more departments within that one university, essentially. And
So they were a university and looking at data on the front top of the funnel
yeah,
stuff
they were
data.
looking at data of students coming in, but they were only looking like the way they were using Flyware and the way they were using this tool was only for, let's call it like the arts admissions. They weren't looking at the sciences. They weren't, and it's really hard because even though you think a university works in an ecosystem, it doesn't. Like the arts team and then the medical department, all of them are very, very disjointed. And so what we
Wow.
needed to do is find the right stakeholders or the right people in the right departments to basically position our value of using that software and tool to grow their admission rate. The problem
Hmm.
was is we were constantly talking about our product. We weren't talking about their admission rates. We weren't talking about how much more revenue, because by the way, a university is still a business, how much more revenue they were going to get from using our tool by admitting 10% more of the students,
Hmm.
essentially. So I know I said a lot of technical jargon, but after that workshop, they were able to identify, okay, we know the right people to go and get. We got them in
Hmm.
a room and we positioned ourselves as revenue growth, not as a product and service, but revenue growth for their admissions. And it was a done deal the next day.
Give me a number. What they do? It went from X to Y.
They went from, I think it was like a 100K deal, but I think it was like they're a multi 100K customer in general, but I think it was 100K that was
Yeah.
around that number. It was a
Nice.
six-figure number. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a client working with a very large brand, Louis Vuitton, and he had his whole business was out leadership stuff, and he's in one silo there, just one, kept him busy for years.
Mm,
And I said, Louis Vuitton's a pretty big company. You could probably there's a I don't know how many different brands they have inside that
yeah.
company. He said, I'm so busy with this one, don't even have time to go to the other ones. He had no interest in scaling his
Yeah.
consultancy.
But it's
But
it's a
yeah,
big
that's a
way where again a lot of revenue is, to your point earlier, is left on the table. There's so many other lines and departments which, as much as you think companies are organized, these teams aren't talking to each other. They're all in silos. And if you want to really again expand your business and grow revenue, you'd be surprised if you ask your daily user or champion or whoever you're talking to saying, "Hey, I think this would work really well for marketing. Shall we get on a call to discuss how this would work for marketing?" Because you're already seeing success in the sales side. Why don't we take this into the marketing side?
right.
Again, it's just an ask. Sometimes they'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh no, we're happy." But more times than not, your existing customer base is on a gold mine of opportunity for
Mhm.
growth for your company. But we're so focused on that one way that we use it in that one product in that one department that we get such tunnel vision that we forget that there's so much more revenue on the table when it comes to our
Yeah, for
existing customer
sure.
base.
Oh, shameless plug time. So how do you help people do that?
So there's two ways that I do help. I do corporate workshops, which is what we just talked about earlier. So I come in and work with your post-sales team to really identify and grow revenue from your existing customer base, whether that's storytelling, upselling, objection handling, you name it, all those skills, tactics. That's one way that I help. And then the other way is we have a certified program that's a 6-week coaching cohort program, half live, half online. And that is a certified program to get you from someone who's just let's say, an everyday customer success manager to a revenue focused commercial strategic customer success manager.
Oh, okay, very good. Give me some best practices. I'm not gonna, give away the whole recipe here, but like if somebody wants to walk away with like one or two tips, what can they start doing today to start uncovering additional revenue for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, whether you're a service-based business or a product-based business, now I work
Hmm.
mostly with product-based businesses.
Okay.
There are usually 3 reasons why people buy a service or a product, and it's because something is affecting their business. As we talked earlier, there's a pain point in the business. One of those 3 reasons is they're trying to grow some revenue, they're trying to make some money, so they're going to buy your product and service. They're trying to be a little bit more operationally efficient or save some money. Like again, they want to optimize. That's the second reason. And the third reason most people buy is because of risk or mitigating risk, essentially. Whether it's like, I want a good website host to keep my website up, or I want to have a 1Password to keep all my stuff locked in. One of these 3 reasons is why people buy software or a service, and we get so like caught up in our own worlds that we think that they're buying a feature or functionality of
Yeah,
our product, but they're
right.
probably buying our service to solve one of these problems. So
Hmm.
my biggest tip is to figure out which lane you serve, and then keep drilling into the ROI or return on investment that you give that company in that lane. So let's say it's your CRM tool, like a customer relationship management software. You focus on revenue growth, right? So every time you have a call with your customer, make sure you're talking about all the money you are helping them grow. Because every time you say that to them, they're like, no brainer, we're going to spend some more money with you. No brainer, we're going to renew our contract with you. It becomes, again, such an easy value conversation, but we get so sidetracked into talking about our features, in talking about the functionality, the number of hours we worked. No one cares about that. AI is doing all that anyways. Like, no one cares about that.
Yeah. So it sounds, to me as a, in sales, that sounds kind of okay, duh. What about if you're not in sales? What if you're a customer support person or an IT person? And are they able to help out with the growth of the company with referrals or getting, if they're like, I'm just going to go down the road of, let's say I sold somebody an enterprise software package, but my IT guy's going there to deploy it, maintain it, and run it. They're not really salespeople, they're technicians. But I'm guessing they can either bring intel back or plant seeds for the sales team, yeah?
100%, both. I'd say both avenues are very valid. So plant seeds, I think that, again, coming back to what I said earlier about the 3 reasons why people buy, make sure you articulate when you have a support ticket or a call with a customer that's saying something's not working. Once you fix it, make sure you reiterate the value of the product, not what you fixed, because that's great. I'm so happy you fixed that for them. But remember, they're trying to grow some money. So now that you fix this, how do you help them grow some money now next, right? Take them to the next step, always like guiding to what's next. And then, like you just said, if they are within the ecosystem of talking to them or commuting it, and then they mention like, oh, this might work for a friend or this might do it, then feed that intel back to your sales team or back to someone else as well. Because even if you're in a service or IT or reactive role, there's still so much value you can remind your customer that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the hardest group to help out with this? I was gonna guess like the engineer mind versus the sales guy mind, but
Yeah.
you tell me what's the
I
hardest one to
I
get
think
them
the
on board?
hardest is actually businesses that are in very established infrastructures. And what I mean by that is I have a few clients that are financial service institutes. So it's really hard to like re-embed what is customer success versus customer service. And then also just, I mean, even education, there's just large institution, large, like just institutions that have been around for a long time. They've worked in a certain way because change is really, really hard. Change is extremely difficult and humans change the slowest. Like we're really bad at it. So what we're doing every single day is a level of change management. And we're trying to make sure that our product is changing the way you work so that you continue to see growth, right? And so,
Right.
but that takes time. And no one has time these days because AI is doing everything in half the time. But it's really important that you do a little bit of change management or a lot of change management with your customer. And I think that that's like any institute that's been around for a while, those are the hardest ones because they're so embedded into the way they work.
Right, right, very good. Okay, so how does somebody if somebody wants to talk to you or hire you, how do they get a hold of you?
Now you can go to thecustomersuccesspro.com or reach out on LinkedIn. I always message back. I'm very good about my DMs, so feel free to hit
There
me
you
up
go.
there.
So it's right there in the show notes below, folks. You can check it out. Anika Zubair from customersuccesspro.com. And any last words of wisdom for people out there who want to get some incremental revenue for their company? Go for it.
Ooh, I don't know if there's anything more. We've cut the cake on all the ways, but I would just say make sure you realize that focusing on your existing customers will actually exponentially grow your business. Like truly. If you just think about it, like how many people go back to buy Coca-Cola rather than Pep? Like it's very rare they're going to switch. They're going to go buy Coca-Cola again and again and again because of the value and the service and everything they get out of that product, right? So
Right.
just think about that. Your biggest gold mine is your existing customer base. As much as marketing and sales want to push to the new business, you can get double, if not triple your revenue just from what's existing within your own ecosystem.
Yeah. I've always said that, and everybody knows the old adage, right? Word of mouth is the best form of advertising. But who has a process and a workflow for it? Not many, right? Oh, I get referrals. Yeah, but is it consistent? So if it's consistent and growing and intentional, it can definitely work. That's my 2 cents. But all right, Anika, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. customersuccesspro.com. Check it out. She's obviously a rock star, knows what she's doing. And you've got money sitting at the table, folks. So
You do. There's so much money untapped there.
Someone else is taking it, so you might as well get in there and serve your clients better, and you can realize some of that gain. Thank you so much for being on the show today. This is Doug Crow with Author Your Brand. Talk to you later.